For those struggling with habitual sin, addiction, or any destructive behaviors, the feeling of being trapped is not just an occasional struggle. It becomes an all-encompassing, exhausting battle. You fight and you fail. You make promises to yourself, but they're broken before you even have a chance to keep them. It's more than just feeling guilty. It's feeling stuck, as if there is no way out and no hope for change. The cycle repeats, and every failure leaves you feeling more and more hopeless. This battle reveals an internal conflict, a war between what your flesh desires and what you know is right. There's a deep part of you that wants to break free, but no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to escape. The more you struggle, the more you become aware of how powerless you are to overcome it on your own. This is the weight of addiction, the weight of sin, the constant pull of selfish desires that leave you feeling bound and hopeless. For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. This feeling of hopelessness is real. It's easy to believe that you are doomed to fail, to be trapped forever in the cycles of addiction or sin. But in the depths of this struggle, there is something crucial to understand. The key to breaking free is not through your own strength or willpower. It is by placing your faith in something greater than yourself, faith in God and His grace to lead you out. The law, which reveals what is right and wrong, often leaves us feeling defeated. It shows us our failures, but doesn't provide the power to change. This is where so many people get stuck, trying to obey the rules, trying to do the right thing, but only feeling more overwhelmed by the weight of their sin. This is the critical truth. You cannot break free on your own. The law exposes our weaknesses, but it doesn't provide the strength we need. When you are at rock bottom, you must realize that the way out isn't by trying harder to be good. The way out is through faith. Faith in the power of Christ to deliver you. As Paul cries out in Romans 7:24, "Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?" Christ is the answer. His grace, His strength, His love, this is what frees us. The law shows us our bondage, but Jesus came to set us free. It's not through our own efforts, but through faith in His ability to lead us out of the darkness. Addiction and sin are ultimately rooted in self-indulgence. We seek pleasure, comfort, and relief from pain by turning to substances or behaviors that satisfy our flesh. But living in this way keeps us bound. We remain focused on fulfilling our own desires, disregarding harm it causes to ourselves and others. When we walk by the Spirit, however, we experience a shift in our motivation. Instead of being driven by self-gratification, we are driven by love. This is the power of faith in Christ. It turns our attention away from ourselves and toward others. In Galatians 5:16, Paul writes, "But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." By trusting in Christ and living by the Spirit, we begin to focus on loving others, and this shift in focus begins to break the grip of addiction and habitual sin. It's not that the struggles disappear overnight, but our desires change. We are no longer enslaved to our own cravings. We are driven by a greater purpose, to love others as Christ loves us. And here's where faith is crucial. Faith in God's ability to transform us is what gives us the strength to live differently. In the midst of our addiction or sin, when it feels like there's no hope, faith says, "I believe that God can bring me out of this. I trust that His grace is enough to change me." This is the kind of faith that leads to freedom. For those trapped in addiction or cycles of sin, it's important to remember that you don't have to overcome this on your own. The way out is not through sheer willpower or a relentless focus on resisting temptation. It's about trusting that God will provide a way out. He is faithful, and He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. As Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 10:13, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, He will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. This promise is not about us fighting on our own. It's about trusting that God will lead us out. When we place our faith in God, we trust that He will provide the strength and the escape we need. We also trust that He will lead us to live with a love that is greater than our selfish desires. Living by the Spirit is a life of faith. It's not about relying on our own strength to resist sin, but trusting that God will give us the power to overcome. It's about living for others, not for ourselves, and letting love be the driving force of our actions. Love, fueled by faith in God's grace, transforms us. We no longer live for self-indulgence, but for selflessness. And in that transformation, we find freedom. When we trust in God and live by the Spirit, our desires begin to change. We are no longer enslaved to addiction or habitual sin. Instead, we find ourselves living for something greater, to love others as Christ loved us. This love breaks the chains of addiction and sin, and it is through this love that we experience the freedom Christ offers. If you are struggling with addiction or habitual sin, know that the way out is not through your own strength. You can't break free through sheer willpower alone, but there is hope, and that hope is found in faith. Trust in God's grace and His ability to lead you out of the darkness. When you place your faith in His strength and walk by the Spirit, you will begin to experience freedom from the chains of addiction and sin. As you live for others, as you embrace love as your motivation, you will find that the grip of addiction loosens. Christ has set you free from the law, and His love, empowered by faith, will lead you to the freedom you seek.